Welcome to PoliticIt Talk, where we talk about political strategy. I'm Josh Light.
And I'm Sterling Morris.
And today's podcast covers the basic elements of political targeting. Sterling, what exactly is political targeting? Who are these politicians trying to target?
You can break up political targeting into three kinds of voters. First, there are voters who will support your candidate. There's also voters who will support another candidate. And finally, there are undecided voters. So those are the three types of voters out there.
And it all comes down to mathematics. You want to figure out how you can get 50% of the vote, assuming that you're just running against one person. But if you're running against 3 or 4 or 5 people, it doesn't have to be 50%. But you got to figure out how to do it. So you want to figure out what percentage of the population you need to vote for you so that you can get over that critical 50% mark. You want to come up with metrics in your campaign that can help you understand whether or not you're actually growing towards achieving that 50% mark. And you want to track those percentages, those metrics, throughout your campaign, and that needs to be something that you do every day.
So with the mathematics, let's say we're looking at the 2nd district in Minnesota. And in that district, a congressional district we'll call it, it might have 20% strong Democratic supporters, 25% soft Democratic supporters, 20% undecided, 15% soft Republican supporters, and 20% strong Republican supporters. So if you add those all up, there's 45% of that district who are Democrats, 35% who are Republicans. And one of the things that we saw on our PoliticIt tour a lot were candidates who were running as a nominee for a party in a district that where they weren't the majority party, and that made it a lot harder for them, just mathematically, for them to find success. So one of the very first things that you can do is find out if your district is Republican or Democrat or any type of party, and if possible, you want to run as the candidate that the majority of voters support, or you want to run for the party that the majority of voters support.
Now, to reach target voters efficiently, you must find the parts of your voter list that contain the highest concentration of the voters you want to reach. Now, this whole process of breaking down your list is called segmentation. Now, a lot of people wonder, where can I find a voter list? I've never done this before. Well, you can actually go to the governor's office online and request a voter list. Some states, it costs a lot of money. Other states, it's free or very inexpensive, like Florida. I think it's $5, and that's only to cover the mailing of the CD to your place. Now, segmentation is really composed of 3 different parts. There's efficiency, coverage, and confidence. Sterling, tell us what efficiency is.
Well, there are 3 parts because not all voter lists are equal. Efficiency. So let's say you have a voter list with something like 30,000 voters. Efficiency is really trying to determine how many of those 30,000 voters are actually your target voters. Remember how we talked about the mathematics of targeting? If you know that your target voters are strong conservatives, moderate conservatives, and then some undecided voters, then you want to know of that voter list how many fit within that classification. So efficiency is just what percentage of that 30,000 person voter list are your target voters. So let's say that 15,000 of the 30,000 voters are your target voters, then your list is 50% efficient. And in terms of coverage just tells you how many people a list covers. So in that case, your coverage on that list would be 30,000 voters.
Yeah, the final thing there is confidence. What is confidence? Well, confidence in this case is basically how confident you are with your data that you're looking at. At least, so you get a poll that's done, and it'll have confidence levels in the poll, confidence that you can look at to determine how accurate that poll is. But there's also other elements that you can look at, other metrics that you could look at when you're analyzing how efficient you are and how well your coverage is, like changes in where your Facebook followers are showing up on your Facebook insights, where your Twitter followers are coming from, where news articles are coming out about you. There's all kinds of metrics that you can look at, but it's really composed of two parts: looking at the data and then getting a political individual who understands the politics of your regional area, your geographical area, that can help interpret the data and what exactly it means. So Sterling, how do we actually target voters once we find them?
Well, it really depends on the type of voters that you're targeting, but these can be broken down into a few segments. There's something called persuasion targeting, and typically there are voters out there who, all voters need to be persuaded to vote for your candidate. So you need to be persuasive and identify what type of voters there are out there, and tailor your message to each segment. One segment is called turnout targeting. With turnout targeting, you are looking at voters who are either not completely certain that they'll stay home, and they're also not certain that they'll vote. And so your message for turnout targeting needs to give someone an incentive to get out and vote. There's also something called supporter targeting, and maybe you can talk about that, Josh.
Basically, supporter targeting is finding your supporters and getting them to come out and vote for you. So that's basically what that is. There's also issue targeting too. That's finding individuals that are concerned about specific issues, and this is actually a really interesting form of targeting, because you can be really you could do some serious micro targeting now with social media with issues. You can find out what people are concerned about online. You can follow certain hashtags on Twitter and find out what certain opinion leaders are concerned about. But the idea is to align your communication channels to get those issues in front of the people that are concerned about them, whether it's a mail out that you do, an advertisement that you launch on a television network, or just social media and getting someone on Facebook and getting the issues in front of your Facebook crowd that you need to. And that's really what issue targeting is. There's also telephone ID targeting. You want to talk about that, Sterling?
Yeah, that's traditionally been a really heavily emphasized method of targeting for campaigns that have funds or have that are rich in volunteers. And we've all seen pictures on social media of supporters who are in a call center or at a campaign headquarters making calls to voters. Typically, this is particularly effective for voters above the age of 40 and 50 years old, as they have landlines and they're a little bit easier to reach. So really the whole idea in targeting is that you break down your voter list, or the group of voters that are in your district, and you segment it based on characteristics. And what this allows you to do is become more efficient and more effective in your coverage. This is becoming a lot easier with technology in the last few years. Josh and I saw a lot of politicians who have begun using social media to be more effective with segmenting and targeting their audience by using some of the analytical tools on Facebook and Twitter. And there are several ways that you can do that, and we'll talk about that more in later podcasts. But segmentation is certainly a way to make politicians have greater success with less money and increase their probability of winning.
Yeah, and the whole idea here is basically do your analytical work up front so that you can figure out the cost of all of your advertising or all of your push efforts to go and talk to voters, and the benefit of whatever you decide to do, whether it's a television ad, a newspaper, whether it's investing in some software, or spending more time in social networks. What does that cost you? How many volunteers is it going to take? And how many people is that going to bring over to your team? How many voters is that going to get to actually vote for you? And that's the benefit of the analytical work. But you can never forget that even with all this data in front of you, you need to have wise individuals who understand the politics of your geographical area that you're running in, who can help you interpret the data. One mistake that we saw on the road, we've met with hundreds of campaigns all across the entire country, literally every state. And one of the things that we saw is sometimes that you have a politician who's running a campaign by themselves and trying to win by themselves. That's very hard to do. A campaign is a very complicated thing. You're essentially starting a corporation, raising a ton of money, and trying to make that corporation go broke in less than a year. And you can't run a corporation by yourself, and you can't run a campaign by yourself. So you need a team to actually pull this off.
All right. Well, thanks, Josh. I think that's about it for this week.
Yeah, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can hear our weekly podcast. Next week, we're going to be talking about targeting supporters. Please comment below and like our videos. Thank you.
PoliticIt Talk is brought to you by PoliticIt. PoliticIt provides powerful real-time campaign analytics for politicians. Contact PoliticIt if you would like to be a beta tester.